this.
I think Giannis has got a wandering eye, and I could see a divorce, yada, 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 all of it for years. We've dealt with it, but he did acknowledge. I think it starts to wear on you, and I think it can kind of break you down.
Get it all on Bucks Talk, your all-encompassing Milwaukee Bucks postgame show. Only heard here on the home of the Bucks, WTMJ.
Heart disease won't stop us. Diabetes, allergies, cancer. Nothing will keep the Freighter and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network from pushing Wisconsin ahead. We're constantly raising the bar for medical excellence and providing more ways to receive it, so you have it for all your health needs, big and small. Let's push ahead, and we'll make life here as great as it can be. Visit Freighter.com to find out how.
Texting enrolls you in a recurring automated marketing text messages. Consent not required to purchase. Message and data rates may apply.
The team's looking good this season.
I think so. Man, I miss playing football. Ever since I turned 40, I just can't find that fire I used to have.
Think it could be lower testosterone?
What do you mean?
I was feeling the same way. After 40, the body has less testosterone, and men lose their edge. That's why I take Nugenix Total T2.
That's the testosterone booster, right?
Yes, but Total T2 is their brand new formula that skyrockets nitric oxide levels in as little as 3 hours. Since I started taking it, I've been lifting like when we played for Coach Carter. My energy is way up, and it even spiced up things between me and the missus.
Are they still giving out complimentary bottles?
Yep, just send a text.
Text METER to 321-321 for your complimentary bottle of Nugenix Total T2, the next generation testosterone booster. Text now and we'll include a bottle of Nugenix Thermo X, our newest, most powerful fat burner ever, absolutely free. Text METER to 321-321. That's METER to 321-321.
These statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. This product is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any disease.
Struggling to provide for your family is a real thing, like having to choose between feeding them a warm meal or paying the utility bill. These are the choices many Milwaukee residents are faced with, which is why they turn to St. Vincent de Paul Society's meal program for help. Our meal program has been a consistent resource for those in need for over 42 years. Nutritious meals, warm showers, and clean clothes, all in a safe, family-friendly environment. Our mission is clear, and that's to help you break the cycle of poverty by connecting you with life-changing community and educational resources. Last year, we provided $2.2 million in goods and services, plus 57,000 warm meals. If you or anyone you know needs a warm evening meal, you can find us at Harambe Kitchen 5 nights a week on the northeast side of Milwaukee in the basement of All People's Church. And at Crossroads Kitchen on the south side of Milwaukee 6 nights a week on 9th and Madison. As always, we're grateful for community members and volunteers who help us help you. To learn more, visit svdpmilw.org.
Now that the game is done, it's our time to check in.
Here's a pull-up jumper. Kuzma hits another three from the left side. Kuzma's got smoke pouring out of both barrels now.
Bucks Talk starts now.
So with trade rumors swirling around Fiserv Forum, the Bucks find reason for optimism with a win tonight.
And now, live from Fiserv Forum, here's Justin Garcia.
Against the Bulls. You get big games from Kyle Kuzma and Ryan Rollins, and really largely played the right way tonight. 42 minutes? I think you would, for the most part, say the Bucks were pretty much in control. They were moving the ball around. They were touching paints. They created good looks. They shot better than 60% from three, and it wasn't just, one hot quarter. It was pretty consistent throughout the mix, and it was just that start to the third quarter where things started to get a little sketchy, but they rebounded after that and picked up a nice win. What that win means and how you choose to view it with the standings and everything else, we will get to throughout the course of tonight's festivities. We will also touch on all the moves we have started to see. I am already wrong. When I believe it was last week, I told you I don't think it's going to be all that active of a trade deadline, and we're not even at deadline day, and we've started to see some moves pick up with intensity. Another one happening during the course of the game here within the division for the Bucks. We'll bring you up to speed on all the latest there. And, by the way, we did see something happened here, a little delicate for us to touch on during the course of the game, but I did have a chance during breaks and other portions of the postgame to get caught up on the interview between Jim Owczarski of the Milwaukee Journal-Sentinel and Giannis. I caught up with Jim earlier today, and he kind of hinted that something was coming. I didn't realize it would be this, but Jim Owczarski with an exclusive with Giannis, and we'll get to your thoughts on all of that here throughout the course of tonight's show. 855-616-1620 is the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. Let us waste no time and head out to the phone lines and check in with Dick in Port Washington. Dick, I'm going to go ahead and assume what you want to talk about tonight has nothing to do with this 131-115 victory against the Bulls.
That's correct. I read Jim O's article, I think, 3 or 4 times. I really would like Giannis to stay, and because he's such a fabric of the city, the state, certainly in my life, my kids' lives. But I think it's good theater. The article is a very, very poignant contemplation of Giannis, and I think it's theater in the sense that what he's prepping for, that when he goes, he's not going to be the bad guy.
Yeah.
I think it's PR genius on his part, and to go way off out of this, but if you look back to when Garth Brooks went through his divorce from his wife way back when he was starting out, and how he shaped and formed all of that through his music, and that he was going to divorce his wife and move on. I get the same vibes here. If it's not tomorrow or Thursday, it's going to be this summer. He's setting the stage to subtly blame ownership for not trying to do all they could to win. Now, you got to read this thing several times and be critical of it, this article several times, and it was written very well. And I don't think Jim O biased it in any way. He presented it. And I think there's probably some guy out there, maybe he'll call in that could sees it totally different than me. But he was saying that he's not so sure ownership has always been in on this. I just find that atrocious to say that. All the things they have done, all the money they have spent, it's crazy to do that, but he's subtly pointing the finger at them. He wants to leave here under good terms, and that he had nothing to do with this. And I think we go back to the coach changes, the players they obtained, etc. I think he's had more of a fingerprint, handprint, whatever you want to call it, on all the things that have happened with the Bucks since they fell from grace, more than what people realize. And yeah, I'll donate to the statue to build in front of Fiserv Forum for him. But I think one thing he has learned, and I have read his book twice about his life, it's very solid. He came up the hard way, but he learned a hell of a lot growing up in Greece, and he realizes where he's at. And legacy is important to him, but winning is the most important to him. And I just think he's gone, either by Thursday or by this summer. And this article was the first volley in his PR campaign to make sure that he's not blamed for it.
Yeah, so again, I would assume at this point most...
Did you get my point?
I do. I would assume at this point most everyone has, at the very least, they've seen the headlines that have come out of it, and I think that's dangerous because most of the headline that is passing around is that Giannis Antetokounmpo reiterates he wants to retire with the Bucks, and he does say that. And to your point, he does set this up and spend quite a bit of time in the early going of this conversation with Jim talking about his love for the city which I don't think anyone has ever questioned, and pointing out the obvious and things that we've talked about and others have brought up quite frequently when you talk about, well, the grass isn't always greener and how things are when you go to different markets, that he can walk the streets of Milwaukee and gets left alone. And my children were born here when I look at their passport, and my father was buried here, and all those things that he's pointed to. I don't think any of us have ever questioned any of that. That ultimately, deep down, I forget how he worded it, but deep down, if I had my wish, I would like to retire with the Bucks. But then we once again hear but other things can happen. That I agree with you. I took it as, look, I just want you to know I love it here. And I think it's okay to say if we're headed in two different directions, we're headed in two different directions. But it just seems like that's a big piece of it is, look, just remember, I love Milwaukee. I'm not asking for this. And I think the biggest thing that it's kind of tricky for me to get into, which could be a slippery slope here, that the article does raise, and Giannis, to your point, brings up, is that he hasn't seen ownership here. That, like, you would have to ask them if their goals have changed. My goals remain this. I would like to be here. He even joked about I mentioned asking out every single offseason, so that's not new. But it did feel like this was kind of an, oh, by the way, like, I'm committed to it. I would like to retire as a member of the Milwaukee Bucks and only play for this organization. I just don't know that we're on the same page here. And this is where the fact that we haven't heard from the ownership group or the general manager, and I get it's probably not a great week for either of those two, that you are probably active in some behind-the-scenes discussions and other moves and trying to look at ways you can position the Bucks to be either, if it remains your goal, a better team for the remainder of this season, or at least in a better spot in the offseason. But it felt like that's what we got here, of a positioning of, all right, I'm going to throw the first jab. I would like to retire a Buck, but it's not up to me, and I haven't heard from them, and neither of you guys.
Yeah, and I think your biggest point there is the if. I cannot fathom anyone, and I really haven't heard anybody in the national talking heads and the pogo stick heads on ESPN, when the Lillard trade came down, everybody from Magic Johnson all the way through said it was great. All of a sudden it wasn't. And that's the talking heads talking about what Giannis really wants. I don't see how anyone in their right mind can blame ownership. Certainly here in Milwaukee, maybe in Cleveland with the Browns, with part of our ownership, how they dismantled that team. But they've done everything possible to get him another championship, to get Milwaukee another championship. Now, it hasn't worked out. It happens all the time in larger markets. The Yankees, the Mets, we're lucky we've got 4 billionaire owners. Think if we wouldn't have had these guys. He probably would have been gone before. It disgusts me that issue is even brought up, that they're not behind it. And the reason they can't talk, and I think one of the options, if they're listening to other teams, they better keep their mouth shut about this. You go in to buy a car, you don't bring up all the other stuff like, oh, my car is barely running here. I need to get a good deal. No, you can say, yeah, I'm thinking about getting a new car. Or you don't say anything. And that's what the ownership in Horse has been doing. I think someone with great PR skills has explained to Giannis how you approach this to put blame other places besides yourself. I mean, my kid from Colorado texted me. This is I think he said 4 out of the last 5 years Harden has asked for a trade. Nobody likes Harden anymore, and nobody in Cleveland's going to like him. He's 36. They traded a 26-year-old for him. Okay, Giannis is trying to avoid all of that for whatever reason, and maybe some of the things he said was true. His father being buried here, his kids being buried here, his being married. He has some affinity to the area. But there's two ways to look at this. Is there's probably, and I guess I don't have facts to back this up, more money to be made in New York, let's say, than in Milwaukee, although internationally, I don't know how much more you can make in New York versus here. And I think that's a big issue with him. Again, from where he came from, had nothing. That's a big deal for him. And his desire to win, all right? You go back to Dirk in Dallas. There was loyalty there, but Dirk, if I'm not mistaken, came from relatively healthier financial situations than Giannis came from. So his viewpoint was different. But this is a different way to do things than what Harden does. And whoever, in my mind, whoever sketched this out for him, Giannis is playing the theater perfectly. Because I can't believe anybody tomorrow morning when they read Jim O's article is going to say, "Oh man, he wants to say." I think it's cover. I'm sorry. I want him to stay. I love the guy, but
I think a lot of people actually, I disagree with you there. I think a lot of people are going to and have already read it and take it as like, see, he's telling you I don't want to be traded, and this is all being fabricated by ESPN. I mean, Doc got to dig in as well when he mentioned in closing in his press conference before the game. Nobody wants to ask me about Giannis, and pointed out, did you guys see that Giannis is coaching Shams in the celebrity game? And I understand that he's already placed him on the trade block. I do unfortunately think a lot of people, and look, maybe we're both wrong or partially wrong with this, but I do think a majority of people are going to look at this and say, he is specifically saying, I don't want to be traded. This is all noise that's coming from the outside.
Right. No, that's my point, though. I maybe I misspoke. This was done with very much craft in writing, in wording, and how he presents it. People are going to read this thing and say, well, he wants to stay. He wants to stay. The problem is with the ownership. And that's where I disagree with him. The article. Anybody that totally looks at this and say it's not Giannis's fault, it's ownership's fault. Wow, where have they been? It's the reality of it. It's great theater. It's good verbiage. It's what he should say, but I don't think in reality that's what he really wants. I'm sorry. I just don't buy it. It's theater.
Thanks for the call, Dick. We'll see what
You're
else
welcome.
takes
Thank
place
you.
here.
Bye-bye.
In the next day and a half here. I do think it's worth pointing out the Dirk Nowitzki potential parallel. If nothing happens, and I've made this clear. Ideally, I would much rather Giannis be a part of this team going forward, even if you tell me, like, if Giannis is fine with it and everything he said in this article of I love Milwaukee, if I had my choice, I would retire as a member of the Bucks. To be clear, he specifically said retire with not like the dancing around of, I come to another team and then I come back and play my final year with the Bucks and retire there. He clearly stated to play with the Bucks the duration of his career and retire with the Bucks. That's what we would all hope for. I suppose selfishly too, like even if you said, look, this is your ceiling. You're going to be a 45-win team, and maybe you'll get to a conference finals in the next 5 years, but otherwise you'll get bounced in the first round 2 years. You'll win in the first round 2 of the other years. You'll get one conference finals, and that's it. That's all you get to taste, but you keep Giannis on board. I think we'd all still say, even if you told me the next 5 years you're probably going to lose in the first round, we would all still rather have that because – I remember certainly what it was like prior to Giannis, and I understand that the landscape of the league, the nature and the finances of the league, it's in a much different space now than it was in the 1990s. That is an important thing to keep in mind, that in the 90s, it was impossible for the Bucks. In the 2000s, it was impossible with the way that the league was, with how it was a star-driven league, and you had to be very top-heavy. You had to be a super team. And you had to have one of the 5 best players in the league to be at that level. It was constantly one of 5 teams that were in the mix to win a championship. That is not this league anymore. And if anything, having an accumulation, as we've seen the past 2 years, of players like Giannis, more than one of them, that is starting to hurt you more than it is help you. So it's not quite as bleak as it is without a superstar, but it still is far more beneficial to have a superstar player, because the most dangerous place to be in the NBA, in any era of the NBA, is the lower middle, right? The teams that we lived through and experienced, where we are not competing for anything. We are not a championship caliber team. I don't even think we can win in the first round, but maybe we can make it a series. Maybe we can win a couple of games. Maybe we can make this entertaining. Maybe we could win in the first round, but that's our ceiling. That's the most dangerous place to be, because it's just this never-ending cycle of mediocrity, and it gets tougher and tougher to get off that wheel and do something about it. And I think that's the fear of losing a guy like Giannis, if it does come to that, is, boy, I hope we don't head back there, because I remember being on that path for 2 decades. It didn't feel great, and the only thing that really changed it was this guy that we will have then potentially lost. So that's certainly not the hang-up, but that's a big piece of the hang-up. The fact that, I'm not going to get into Giannis versus Kareem in terms of their career achievements, but their career achievements in Milwaukee. Giannis is the greatest player in Milwaukee Bucks history. And that's the other challenge with all of this, which I do want to get to. In some of the trades that happened earlier today, I've seen one constant thing that's been pointed out by a lot of fans is, well, this ups the price that you're asking for with Giannis. And I don't necessarily think that's the case, because NBA trades are not comparing apples to apples. There's a lot of caveats that need to be applied here. So I don't think, looking at what Memphis got for Jaren Jackson Jr., that has nothing to do with Giannis, for a couple of reasons. Desmond Bane's trade in the offseason, that has nothing to do with what you're going to get for Giannis, because it's different in each of those situations. So I do want to take a look at that. But importantly, I think the spot that you're likely stuck in right now is, look, if they are, and this is a big if the Bucks are in fact listening to offers, I don't know what those offers are. If we are led to believe it's from, 4 teams ideally that are interested, when you look at what's available, and that's going to be the challenging part, is, can we settle, right? Like, ideally, I don't know what the ideal package is from any of those teams. Giannis is not a player you can settle for, even if it carries a high danger and a risk of, well, what happens if we get to October and you hang on to him through the summer too, and say, we think we can make some noise in the lottery. Like, that is the Hail Mary that we have, where we're going to get a very, very impactful player that is young, that can help us out immediately, and that is the next young star to pair next to you, and that's the next iteration of the group, and that's going to convince you to sign another extension here and play out your years and get what you hope for, that you will play for and retire with the Milwaukee Bucks. What happens if that doesn't happen and it drags through the summer and you're kind of back in the same spot, and you get to October and there's no deadline, or there's no extension that's signed, or you're notified, I am not signing the extension. Now, he would be walking away from money in that case, because the Bucks can offer him an extra year and more money than any other team, and any team that traded for him between now and then could do the same as well. But that's a great risk to take, to say, even if you don't believe he would walk away from money, that's a great risk to say, well, we could potentially lose him for nothing. So if our options are, this is less than ideal or nothing, it's a tougher conversation to have when we're talking about, again, the greatest player in the history of this franchise, and it's not like the last Dirk contract, where Dirk gave the Mavericks some money back and was clearly on the last legs of his career. It's not that. He is still, at worst, one of the 3 best players in the league. So that is, again, if you are listening to offers, that's the challenge, is realistically, I don't know what any of these teams that we're led to believe are the front runners could offer for him. And we can't settle in the case of a player as great and currently as great as Giannis is. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. I mentioned the Dirk parallel. I do want to take a look at a few of those things that stand out about Dirk's career. And just, the notion of competing for championships on an annual basis, what the cost is. So we'll take a look at that and the latest on all of these trades that have taken place, why this isn't apples to apples. And one of these or another does not necessarily mean this is what the asking price is for another player. We'll get into those conversations coming up after this.
This is Bucks Talk.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield on Capitol Drive and in Greenfield on Highway 100 to save 30 to 35% store-wide today. Sleep better and save more with mattresses from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in our Milwaukee factory, our mattresses utilize natural materials like cotton cushioning, which dissipates body heat, Joma wool quilts for warm wintry nights and cool summer evenings, and natural latex providing superior conformability and pressure relief for aching joints. Stop in today at any Ken Michaels Furniture store and save up to 50% compared to national brands.
Recently, a seller that unfortunately ended up choosing another agent called me. She said she made a mistake, and what she was expressing to me sounded like she kind of was bullied into signing with him. Is it typical? Not always, but it will never happen when you hire a Century 21 Benefit Realty agent. I want our agents to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'd want to work with me. Not because they're good at saying what you want to hear or offer the lowest commission, but because of trust. Because if you're not feeling that from your agent, that's a problem. And I don't want that. At 1.9% on the listing side of your sale with our commission capped at $19,000, Century 21 Benefit Realty leads with a very fair and transparent commission structure with maximum marketing that can get your home sold fast and for the best price. And saving money matters, but working with someone who'll tell you exactly what you need to know up front, that creates trust. And that matters too. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated.
At Capri Communities, they believe people of every age deserve to enjoy life.
I recently moved my dad into a Capri community. He has gained such new independence. His falls have decreased, he's eating healthy meals, and going on great new adventures. Knowing Dad is in a great place really gives me the peace of mind I needed. And now, we're both enjoying life again.
Give the care that has your parent enjoying life again at Capri Communities. Get started today at capricommunities.com.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
$131-115 final score tonight. Bucks beat the Chicago Bulls. Again, I don't want to underscore the game itself because you got nice games from Ryan Rollins, Kyle Kuzma, and a host of others, but obviously a lot of the focus and attention this week, today especially, is on off-the-court things. A lot of trades that we already saw take place earlier today, and as we started the program talking about Jim Owczarski catching up with Giannis before the game today to get his thoughts on everything, where I think the big takeaway from a lot of people is Giannis reaffirming he doesn't actually want to be traded in that article with Jim O. 855-616-1620, the Siding Unlimited talk and text line to join us tonight on Bucks Talk. I do want to touch on the Dirk thing and the rest of the trades. Before we do that, let's grab one more call here. John in Fremont, you're up next.
Hey, how you doing, Justin?
Good. What about you?
You're doing a great job. You're doing a great job with all this. This is quite a tricky situation for many reasons, I'm sure, for you, and you're doing a wonderful job. I think regardless of the whole situation here, obviously the Bucks are rebuilding their team. Either they're going to rebuild it with Giannis or they're going to rebuild it, without him. And really, I think what's happened here, and I think John Horst has taken a lot of heat, and I think that's kind of unfair because you look at, they have had very little ways of building this team up other than the Dame Lillard trade. You know, that didn't really work out. But, you know, I think what the Bucks need to focus on here is they're either rebuilding the team with Giannis or they're rebuilding the team through trade. But they're going to have a top 10 pick this year. They need a wing. Maybe they get lucky and they get in the top two. There's two guys. There's a guy from BYU. There's a guy from Kansas. Either one of those guys is going to be a Chris Middleton type of player in the league. I mean, not exact, of course, but he's going to be a good player. I mean, that's pretty obvious, okay? Now, if you move Giannis, the thing the Bucks have to do, and they haven't been doing in recent years and acquisitions, they have to go for younger players. I mean, if Giannis, if they have to move him, you know, they need a needle-moving player, and they need picks. But they need to get a player in this. You know, when Paul George was traded, Oklahoma City got this guy by the name of SGA. He's kind of had a pretty good effect over there in OKC. You know, of all these players that you hear about, you need a young player like 25, 26 years old. And Jaden McDaniels is the only guy that I've heard of that would – he's a bit of a needle turner, you know. I mean, he can do a few things, you know. He's young, he's athletic, he plays both sides of the ball. That's another thing. You need an all-around guy that can pass, rebound, defend the ball, and score. That Jaden McDaniels can do that. You know, they need those kinds of players. You have Miles Turner. I think he's a top 4 kind of guy on a team that could win a championship. Giannis is obviously a number 1. If he stays here, you need to get a couple of guys. You can get one guy in the draft. You've got 2 picks available in addition to that in the off season. You know, you've got Trey Murphy over there in New Orleans. You've got Herb Jones. These are younger players. I think they're attainable. You know, you add a top pick with Giannis, with Turner, and if you can acquire a guy in trade, you've got 4 guys, and you need, like I say, you need a couple of wings here that are all-around players. This isn't as dire as people think it is. It's dire because there's been a lot of noise. I mean, after this deadline, if they keep Giannis, I really hope Wes Edens at least releases a statement, you know, and says, hey, we can do this. We can improve things. You know, and we want to, and we're dedicated to that. You know, I think the silence there has not been really a wise move. And I think this is, look, I still have confidence in Wes Edens. I still have confidence in John Horst. These are not stupid people. People need to remember, John Horst traded for Holiday. John Horst signed Brooke Lopez. These are facts. Do you think they win a championship without those 2 players? No. Those were very astute moves. Now, all these other moves in recent times, I mean, picking up Pat Beverly and Kuzma and some of these moves, they haven't maybe been the brightest moves, but these have been, you know, small, really, I mean, investments. You don't have, you know, they haven't had, the only guy they really had that had some value was Holiday. They took a shot with Lillard. It really didn't work out. That's one bad move. I don't know. I've made mistakes in life. I think everybody has. Things don't always work out. But this thing isn't dead. It isn't dead by any means here. But you've just got to make wise moves, and you got to get good character people in here as well. You know? And I think if you do that, you can win here. You can still win here. Giannis is 31. He's not 37 like, you know, Durant. So, I mean, there's still opportunities here to win, but you have to make astute moves, and I still think they can do that, you know, but, you know, you have to get younger players that are athletic, that are multi-skilled players. I mean, you can't just go for guys. I mean, Kuzma, God bless him, he works hard on defense. He's not a good shooter. He's not going to be he wasn't a good shooter 2 years ago. He was maybe a little better, but not really. He never was a good shooter. He's a guy that can play a full court game because he can move. He's got quickness and speed. His defense is halfway decent, but he's not the kind of guy that you're going to, really build a team around. But, I mean, Chris Middleton's knees and ankles, I mean, you weren't going to get, the World's Fair for him. So I think everybody would be best to just put a little faith in the Bucks organization here and just move astutely. The only thing I would say to John Horst, if I could speak to him right now, would be let's go younger. Let's attempt to get younger players. These 29, 30, 31-year-old players, there's something about the game of basketball. It's a young man's game. And if you can acquire, younger players like Trey Murphy, like Herb Jones, like, Sharp in Portland, those types of players, young wing guys that are athletic and have all-around skill, this team is just, they're like in a desert at that position. They've been in a desert really since 22, 23. So those are some of my thoughts. I just think people don't give up here, and I would, if I could say to Giannis, I would say, hey, the grass isn't always greener, Dame Lillard came here and things really didn't work out too well, and so hang in there. I mean, you've got some good pieces here, and I wouldn't trade Bobby Portis either. Bobby Portis, what is he, top 5 in three-point percentage, and he rebounds. Now, is he a good on-the-ball defender? Not so much. But he has value. He has value to this franchise, and he provides continuity with Giannis if he still is here. I mean, you don't want to, and furthermore, if they could acquire Middleton through a buyout, that wouldn't be the dumbest thing to do at the end of the year here if Giannis is going to be here. I think that would bring comfort to Giannis. And, Middleton has leadership skills. I mean, he was the leader of that team that won the championship. Let's be real. Giannis provided plenty of leadership.
Yeah. All good points. Thanks for the call, John. I mean, I do wonder what contending teams are going to show an interest in Chris Middleton. I mean, look, it's one thing to reunite him with Giannis and to bring him back to Milwaukee, but I don't know what Chris Middleton is going to be searching for and what the teams in a position to go further in the playoffs that are going to be interested in would be. And that, I would think, would certainly outweigh coming back to Milwaukee for nostalgia purposes. But all the points that were brought up there, for the most part, I agree with you. It's a big if. And I agree with the notion that's coming out of, look, we still have this. Just wait and see what happens in the draft lottery, because I've long said it, too. You look at other teams that have kind of started to reposition themselves. You mentioned the Thunder in trading Paul George and getting Shai Gilgeous-Alexander and what that did. Is a guy like Jaden McDaniels potentially on that path? I don't think anybody has him slotted in as a league MVP caliber player. He is certainly a very nice, attractive player. It also means you don't have Giannis. But there's a lot of complications that come with Minnesota and their offers. Same with Miami and same with Golden State and the other teams that we've been led to believe are in that inner circle of front runners. They do need wings, and they have needed them for quite some time. Unfortunately for the Bucks, so do a lot of teams, and that is a premium position that they have, depth and a surplus of depth at other positions that have become easier to attain those players positionally. But the one position that looms as one of the most, if not the most important in the league, is just where they haven't had it for going on 4+ years now. And that's a big part that put them in this spot here. But the trades that took place today, what it could potentially mean for the Bucks, and some of the packages that teams have received in return for guys like a Jaren Jackson Jr. and going all the way back to the summer with Desmond Bane. it does have an impact in this sense. Like, it doesn't mean, okay, if you got 3 for Jaren Jackson Jr., you now get 5 for Giannis. They're not linked at all for reasons we'll get into coming up after this on Bucks Talk.
You're listening to Bucks Talk.
Some pizza places have changed their tune about using real mozzarella cheese, but not Marty's. We use only 100% real mozzarella cheese, and we wouldn't have it any other way, because quality matters. Oh, you can taste the difference. With 100% real mozzarella, there's elasticity. And even when it's cold, it's still delicious. Marty's Pizza, nothing but 100% fresh ingredients, and nothing but 100% real mozzarella cheese. We're easy to find at martyspizza.net.
Marty's Pizza. Do you remember when times were good? Well, they're good again. It's as good today as it was in the past. It doesn't get any better than that. Remember Marty's Pizza.
This Valentine's Day, create a space that feels warm and welcoming with help from Menards. Whether it's a small refresh or a big project, Menards has the tools and materials you need. Build something together and make your home a place you both love coming back to. Don't forget the sweets for your sweetheart. Get a 6-ounce bag of Russell Stover chocolate candies for $3.99 now through February 14th. Save big money and finish your projects together at Menards.
Save big money at Menards.
Your European experts at Fox World Travel are ramping up and busy as ever. When you want to see more of Europe, Princess Cruises delivers. With Princess Cruises and Fox World Travel, explore iconic Mediterranean ports by day, then relax in classic comfort by night. From immersive shore excursions to destination-inspired dining, every moment is designed to feel effortless. Ready to set sail on your Mediterranean adventure? Call 866-GO-FOX-GO or visit foxworldtravel.com to book your European getaway.
Prizes, flyaways, even cash money. You want it? We've got it. Find a list of all contests and official rules by visiting WTMJ.com/contests.
That's WTMJ.com/contests.
Alleviate your pain, rejuvenate your life.
Rejuvenex.com. The round ball repartee returns. This is Bucks Talk.
131 to 115, our final tonight. The Bucks knock off the Bulls. They snap what was a 5-game losing streak, led by Kyle Kuzma with 31 points on 12 of 22 shooting. Kuz with a double-double. Ryan Rollins with a double-double as well with 21 points and 10 assists. This is trade deadline week, and we've spent already the first, 40 minutes of today's show talking about that Giannis interview with Jim Owczarski just before this game itself tipped off. There's been a handful of notable trades that took place earlier today. The most surprising one, which, not surprising today, but surprising to get the reports that we were headed towards this last night, was the Cleveland Cavaliers trading for James Harden. They sent Darius Garland to the Clippers along with a second-round pick for James Harden. Now, even though it's a second-round pick, and you may say, well, it's a second-round pick, it's nothing, who cares? The Bucks have none, right? And second-round picks are sweeteners to get deals done. Second-round picks themselves have been used to acquire players. Although it didn't work out, the Bucks used 5 to get Jay Crowder. They used 4 prior to that to get Nikola Mirotic. So there is value to second-round picks. And, oh, by the way, to keeping second-round picks. Gone are the days where second round doesn't matter because you're not finding guys. Like, it's not littered with superstars by any means, but you can find rotational players. In the case of Nikola Jokic, MVPs in the second round. Malcolm Brogdon was a Rookie of the Year. You're seeing it happen more and more regularly, that second-round picks become valuable players. So first and foremost on that front, I'm not dismissing a second-round pick that's tossed in. It is notable to me that the Cavs were the team that had to include draft capital to bring in a 36-year-old James Harden, who was a free agent this offseason and who wanted or can decline a player option as a partial guarantee, who wanted to go to Cleveland. And when you get that reporting, he wants to go to Cleveland because whenever you hear that, it means the player in his representation already has the sense this team is going to pay me and going to extend me in the offseason. So to go from a 26-year-old, was an all-star a year ago, and I know he struggled with injuries this year in Darius Garland, to a 36-year-old, James Harden, and you're the one that's giving up draft capital. And again, let's keep in mind, the big knock and question with Cleveland is this. They have come up short in the playoffs routinely. Last year, it was, injuries, right? We couldn't have all of our guys together at the right time, and we just ran into a buzzsaw in the case of the Indiana Pacers. The year prior to that, we weren't ready yet. Guys weren't quite experienced in the postseason. That year after year after year, you can make these excuses. And I think we've all sat back here and said, guys, it's not that easy. We did the same thing. Lo and behold, the Bucks haven't been out of the first round in 3 years. So let's keep that in mind. But your solution to solving our playoff woes and coming up short in the biggest moments is to bring in an individual player who exemplifies that and has struggled throughout the postseason in the form of James Harden is one of the more puzzling things to me. But also, Cleveland is a second apron team, and the other moves they've made have been shedding money to reduce their tax bill and potentially get under that second apron. I don't think by any means they are done yet. I believe it's still $5 million roughly they'd have to cut to get under that tax figure in the apron. So I don't think they're done. But the fact that they're attaching an asset, a second-round pick, does also make you question, boy, how bad is the toe for Darius Garland? And again, he's missed a lot of time this season. But how bad is that foot? That do they have questions? He may not pass the physical, and we're going to have to attach something for the Clippers to look past it. But that was certainly one of the more surprising moves we've seen. Let's go back to over the summer. Desmond Bane traded from the Memphis Grizzlies, who are an important team we'll get to in a second, to the Orlando Magic. And, with that trade, there was 4 first-round picks that were going from Orlando to Memphis. And with that trade, I saw a lot of people reference that and reference the Mikal Bridges trade a summer prior or 2 summers prior by the Knicks and saying 5 first-rounders in that deal, too. Like, imagine what Giannis is going to fetch if this is the case. And here's the important thing to remember, why I said it's not apples to apples. All of it is different. You have to look at the age, you have to look at the contract, and you also have to look at the assets themselves. It's one thing to say Desmond Bane went for 4 first-round picks, when the reality is this. Yes, there were 4 picks, but part of that payment was taking on contracts of, okay, we're going to get 4 because we're also taking on Kentavious Caldwell-Pope's contract. So at least one of those picks was, you got to take on this $40 million of KCPs. This Jaren Jackson Jr. trade, you heard the same thing. He goes for 3 firsts. Like, what are we doing here? Giannis has to go for 6. Again, it's not that simple. Jaren Jackson Jr., no one is going to say is a better player than Giannis. And you're seeing more of the same where the Pelicans are asking for multiple firsts for guys like Trey Murphy and Herb Jones. No one is making the point Herb Jones, Trey Murphy, Desmond Bane, Jaren Jackson Jr. are better players or equal players to Giannis. But they are all younger. Desmond Bane had signed an extension, so you knew you were getting him long-term and did not have to be the team that pays him. Jaren Jackson Jr. just last year signed an extension, and you're getting 3, possibly 4 years of him if he picks up his player option. Herb Jones is under contract for 3 more years. Same story for Trey Murphy, that you're getting young players that are still under contract, in the case of those 2 team-friendly contracts, for at least 3, potentially 4 years. But with Jaren Jackson Jr.'s trade as well, like, we just see 3 first-round picks and leave it at that and say, okay, well, if that's it, here's what the Bucks should get. Those 3 first-round picks, the reality is there is a very good chance none of those 3 end up being lottery picks. One of those three is the Lakers pick next year. Do you think, and I know there's ambiguity around LeBron James, Austin Reeves can be a free agent, but you are the Los Angeles Lakers with Luka Doncic in tow now. Do you think the Lakers are going to be a lottery team next year? Another one of those picks is part of a pick swap where, again, it's the league has really hurt themselves, where they've made things far more complicated than they need to be with how many teams can take a piece of that pie. Well, you get the second worst of the first rounder between this team and this team and this team, but that's one of the other picks that is going back to Memphis in exchange for Jaren Jackson Jr., where they get the best of the first-round picks between the Utah Jazz, who are looking to win now, and we heard that message from Austin Ainge coming into this season. We're done tanking. We're done playing that game. We want to be competitive and win. And with the guys they have under contract and with what guys like Keontae George have started to do, there's a good chance they're going to be at worst competitive in the Western Conference next year. But that other pick, one of the other picks, is the worst of the Jazz next year, the Timberwolves next year, or the Cavs next year. The Jazz are the best chance for that to be a lottery pick, and Utah doesn't want to be a lottery team. The last one is Phoenix's unprotected pick in 2031, which, look, I suppose that's the best one to bank on because a lot can change between now and the next 5 years, but that pick certainly doesn't look quite as enticing as it did 12 months ago. So you got to be careful when you see, X amount of first-round picks, because it doesn't always mean great first-round pick. I mean, we just get hung up on firsts when we've seen enough of a track record to know it's very feast or famine, right? It's very boom or bust, and this may not equate to anything, and especially now when it's so far down the road, you don't even know what that is. It's much easier to know lottery has happened, here's where your pick is. Okay, we're getting 3 first-rounders, and it's number 13 this year. It's going to be number 12 next year, and so on. You don't know any of that. So it's easy to sell this as we got X amount of first-round picks when the reality is, well, those picks might not even be good, but also contracts matter, age matters, and free agency matters. Those are all part of what you're paying for. And in the case of Giannis, again, he's a 31-year-old player. That doesn't mean he's bad. That doesn't mean he's about to break down. But there's a difference in this version of the league in acquiring a 31-year-old versus acquiring a 26-year-old, and especially when it's a 31-year-old, that you're going to have to pay $60+ million per year to as soon as you make that deal and sign him to an extension. So that's why I think if a move happens, we just better be prepared for the volume of picks to not quite be what you think it should be. Now, again, I'm going to reference the article from Jim Owczarski and the conversation that he had with Giannis. In that interview, we hear from Giannis, my desire, my dream would be to remain a member of the Bucks and retire as a member of the Bucks, but he did seem to leave the door open towards the end. So if we do move towards a trade, we've heard 4 teams come up more than any of them. What is the actual offer that you can get from the 4 teams? And this is where it gets dangerous, and I hate getting into the fantasy aspect of like, well, this is the offer you should take when we have no idea what is being discussed, what other teams are willing to part with, what they value. Do they value bringing in a star? Do they value building the way that we're seeing more and more teams do it and build with young players and picks? So, no, we're not doing this. So it's easy to come out and say, well, make a trade with Atlanta and get Jalen Johnson and get that number 1 pick from the New Orleans Pelicans this summer. There are no indications Atlanta wants to do that, just as there's no indications that other teams would be willing to part with X, Y, and Z. So of the 4 teams we've heard kicked around the most, it is sourced reporting from very reputable insiders around the league that keep circling back to those 4 teams. So what do they have to offer? And again, do you need to temper your expectations? We'll take a look at that coming up after this.
The Hardwood Homilies continue after this. This is Bucks Talk.
QC Kinetics helps active people stay active. People like David Boardman, police officer, competitive athlete, and gym owner who trains hard almost every day.
My body's taken a lot of abuse over the years. I've had multiple knee surgeries on both of my knees. I could barely run a mile prior to going to QC Kinetics. Doctors have all told me, hey, you are going to need knee replacements.
But QC Kinetics gave David great news.
We're going to give you the opportunity to have not one, but 2 healthy knees, and we don't have to cut you open.
And after David's regenerative treatments at QC Kinetics,
since I've gone to them, I run 20, 30 miles a week. I really wouldn't be able to do that if it wasn't for QC Kinetics.
From knee pain to Ironman training,
it's a no-brainer.
Now it's your turn. Call QC Kinetics to book your free consultation today.
Call QC Kinetics, 414-667-5559. That's 414-667-5559. 414-667-5559.
February means big savings at Exterior Pros and Baths. Upgrade your home with energy-efficient windows, durable roofing, new siding, or a beautiful bath makeover and get $3,000 off your project. That's $3,000 in instant savings, but only for a limited time during our February winter savings event. Call 262-800-4274 or visit extpros.com now. Exterior Pros and Baths. Big savings done right.
The fact is, without us, you'll pay more. When you buy advertising, unless you're seeking out every avenue that the chosen medium has to offer and negotiating with every entity to find out what the true floor is, there's no way you can know if you really did get your best deal. In fact, there's a big chance that you'll overpay. We've done all the legwork, and with a very high volume of consistent year-in and year-out billing, we've uncovered rates that we're sure will surprise you. Anderson-Smith.com. We help small business advertisers get better results. The proof is in the pudding. Advertisers that hire us stick with us for years and years because they trust us, because we always promptly respond to customer needs, and because bottom line, we get results. Go to Anderson-Smith.com's Our Clients page to see who trusts us and check out a long list of real advertising success. Then hit the Contact Us button, email me, and I'll call you in short order because it's time we grew your business. Anderson-Smith.com.
This is Bucks Talk.
All right, a busy day here, and it figures to be the same tomorrow and the first portion of the day on Thursday as well when we get the trade deadline at 2 o'clock Central Time here in Milwaukee. But again, I would encourage everyone to check out the interview that Jim Owczarski had with Giannis earlier today, just before the game was played, and form your own opinion on what was said there. I think you can say a revealing conversation between Jim and Giannis, and of course, it coming days before the trade deadline, I believe, is notable. But I mentioned, well, we've heard the same handful of teams mentioned in all of these discussions. And it feels like, I know I said 4, but it really feels like we are kind of hovering around 2 to 3 teams that keep getting pushed out there. The Golden State Warriors, the Miami Heat, the Minnesota Timberwolves are the 3 that you're hearing the most about this week. And here's the challenges with all of them. Again, if this is where we head, where both parties collectively decide time to move on, there is no one team with the package that would suffice everything you're looking for, because I'm going to assume if the Bucks come to the conclusion it's probably best for us, and if this is where Giannis is as well, it's probably best for both of us to move on here, for you to be able to compete at a championship level, for us to have to take a step backward to take another step forward, and that's not on each other's timeline. Okay, here's what we're going to need. We're going to need some short-term draft capital, and we're going to need some players that can help us immediately. Something we can build around, because it can't just be draft picks. We got to have some tangible talent in here as well that's going to help us in the short term. Now, if we can't get enough short-term draft assets, We at least need something. We need players. We need draft picks. Ideally, at least one of those is in the short term, and then we can bet against you long term. All Golden State has to offer in terms of their draft picks is down the road. And frankly, that is a bet I would be willing to take in most circumstances. Because Steph Curry's, 36 years old, 38 years old. Draymond Green, same story there. Jimmy Butler, all accounts are the Warriors don't want to include him in a deal, and it would be Draymond Green. But Jimmy Butler in his mid to late 30s and coming off an ACL injury now. It's an old group. And we've seen these past few years, age isn't what gets it done anymore. It's a young man's game. So betting on that and saying, I don't think the Warriors are going to be a team that's going to compete at that level, even with Giannis, with the makeup of that roster. Like Giannis and Steph is great, sure, greatest shooter of all time, maybe the greatest fast break and paint player of all time teaming up together, but Steph at an advanced age, Giannis at 31 years old. And look, I don't think anyone would try and sit here and say Damian Lillard is and was a greater player than Steph Curry, but we lived through that for 2 years, and it didn't work. So, yeah, I'll take that bet. The problem is you could potentially get an excellent pick this summer. 2027, you don't have a pick. That's the final payment in the Drew Holiday trade. Then 2028 is a pick swap with the Portland Trailblazers. And there's multiple teams attached to it now. So it figures to not be a good pick that the Bucks are getting back. Either way, you can't move it. 2029 is gone altogether in the Damian Lillard trade, and then 2030 is the same story. So it's not until 2031 that you control your draft after this 2026 pick. You need something in the short term that's going to help you out, where you say, look, we can't just go years with nothing. And Golden State doesn't have that to help you out. So that is a tough bet to take on and say, okay, we'll wait 5 years to cash in on this, because you could essentially be giving away the number one pick in the draft in multiple of those 5 years if things don't go right for you. Jonathan Kuminga, you could throw in fine. He's a young player. He's not at the level of other names that we've discussed. That is not a blue chip. This is a superstar in the making. There is no fit there. I would be shocked. The Miami Heat, maybe the best of the teams discussed, definitely the best mixture of picks and young players. But again, what is the quality of both? Short-term draft picks from any team that's acquiring Giannis are not going to help you. Those do not figure to be good draft picks. So that's the other challenge, is if we're dealing with teams for picks immediately, they kind of have to be owed from other teams that are coming over to us that we think are going to be bad. And then the talent that you would get back in terms of young players, we can, parse over the names like Kel'el Ware, Jaime Jaquez Jr., Kasparis Yakachonis. I don't think any of those guys are, this could be a superstar in the making. Young, nice talent that, what it would fit best with? A team that has Giannis. Okay, these are the types of players that we need to fit around him. The Minnesota Timberwolves are an interesting one, because I think if you told Bucks fans it's over and both parties have decided it's time to move on, I do genuinely think Minnesota is a type of team you would say, you know what? Somewhere like there. Like, that's where I would like to see him go, because I can find myself rooting for the Timberwolves. There's a lot of similarities between Timberwolves fans and Bucks fans and the two franchises, too, when you think about decades and decades of futility and issues and being the younger brother and all those struggles that you dealt with of, okay, you know what? I would like to see you do something there. And I think that's important to point out, too, is the legacy aspect. Again, I cannot stress enough. If we move towards it, the legacy of this move and teams that you would join, I don't see, not just Giannis, any of these type of superstar players. You'd certainly never see Kevin Durant do it again, and he's spoken about this after his jump to Golden State. But you've seen more and more players saying, well, if I do this, I'm joining this player's team. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be the Robin, essentially, or the 1B at best. I want to be the guy. I want to be the guy that brings something here. And I don't think it's fully there with Minnesota, but you still have Anthony Edwards. You would be the guy that helped Anthony Edwards and the Timberwolves finally get past the conference finals and ideally win a championship. But there's still that component to take into account. Now, here's where it becomes very difficult, and why I've long maintained, again, as I've stated, I don't want Giannis traded. I would much rather Giannis remain a Buck for life and be on this team that I get a chance to be around. But for no other reason than the packages that are out there for all of these teams, I just don't see anything happening before the trade deadline unless there's a dark horse that jumps in and says, like a Hawks offer of, here's this young budding star and here's a great draft pick as well. Minnesota has a young budding star, I think, in Jaden McDaniels. And they have other guys that can help you out now. They have prospects, too. Johan Berenger, who we saw put up a big game against the Bucks a couple of weeks ago, and is a nice prospect for a big man. Other guys that haven't quite hit, Terrence Shannon and Rob Dillingham, they got young players that could come over, and they got contracts that are going to help round this out as well in terms of Jaden McDaniels, who I do think is that type of guy. And whether it be Julius Randle or Naz Reid, whatever it is to contractually make it work, they're guys that could help you in the short term, and one of them may develop into a star in the case of McDaniels. But there is no draft assets as of this moment that the Minnesota Timberwolves can deal to you because of pick protections and other deals that they've made, and their 2032 first-round pick, even if you wanted to play the, we'll wait, we'll kick the can down the road and we'll bet against you, that pick is frozen because they were a second apron team. So there is no perfect mix as of this moment that's out there of, okay, we can get young players, at least one we think is going to develop into something very nice, an all-star caliber player or better, and we can get draft capital as well. That deal right now doesn't exist. And again, it's not just that he's the best player in the history of your franchise. He is still one of the, at worst, 3 best players in the league. There is no scenario where you can sell a trade that you're not getting draft capital back, even if you're getting guys that are nice players. Again, Jaden McDaniels and let's say Julius Randle and others, that's going to keep you competitive in the short term. But that's not the package you get back for a player as great as Giannis. And you can look at it, not just those teams, other teams as well. I've seen it thrown out there of, well, what if they give you this guy and then you can flip that player for first-round picks? So in essence, you are getting it. To me, what I say to that, we have a history of seeing this too. Easier said than done. Like, no, you do the work. I'm not doing the legwork for you. If I'm giving you this player, you're not also asking me to do this. You do it. You make that move. You get the assets, and you give them to me. We're not playing this. Yeah, you could potentially get that game. And I think that's where we're ultimately at right now and why this is unfortunately going to continue to drag as much as Bucks fans don't want to hear it and don't want to deal with the rumors and everything else. That is a big part of the reason in why we're here is it's not as easy as saying just give 6 first-round picks or just do this, this, and this because teams need to have that. And quite frankly, again, if we get to the point where it is decided a trade needs to happen, they are probably, both teams, both sides, better off waiting until the summer and waiting to see, okay, there's only one team that can win a championship. There's going to be several disappointed teams who think it's wide open. We can compete. We can win our conference. We can win the title. This is our year. We don't see teams repeat anymore. As good as Oklahoma City looks, it's just not the way in this league, so we think this is it. There's going to be teams that are very disheartened and very disappointed with the way their playoffs go, and those are going to be the teams that say, okay, year after year didn't work out for us. The Minnesota Timberwolves could get active and say, how do we bring in draft picks if they reach the conference finals for a 3rd straight year and don't make it? The Houston Rockets. What if the Oklahoma City Thunder come up short? Like those types of teams, that's where it benefits you more if we head towards a trade to wait until the offseason because there are going to be teams that were disappointed and desperate that maybe were out at this point But now, disappointing in the playoffs, there's always at least one team that loses a round earlier than they expected. The team that loses in the second round that we thought we were going to win our conference. That's the team that's all of a sudden now more open to it and more willing to include things they ordinarily would not have considered. We will preview tomorrow's matchup with the New Orleans Pelicans and wrap things up after this on Bucks Talk.
WTMJ, W277CV, and WKTI HD2 Milwaukee from the Annex Wealth Management Studios. This is News Radio WTMJ, a Good Karma brand station.
Heart disease won't stop us. Diabetes, allergies, cancer. Nothing will keep the Froedtert and the Medical College of Wisconsin Health Network from pushing Wisconsin ahead. We're constantly raising the bar for medical excellence and providing more ways to receive it, so you have it for all your health needs, big and small. Let's push ahead, and we'll make life here as great as it can be. Visit Froedtert.com to find out how.
Visit family-owned Ken Michaels Furniture and our in-store design centers where you'll still find beautiful, luxurious, heirloom quality American-made furniture. Right now, save 30 to 35% store-wide and take advantage of our complimentary design services. Whether you're moving, renovating, or updating, our designers will help your vision become a reality. Visit Ken Michaels Furniture in Brookfield on Capitol Drive and in Greenfield on Highway 100 to save 30 to 35% store-wide today. Sleep better and save more with mattresses from Milwaukee Mattress and Ken Michaels Furniture. Handcrafted in our Milwaukee factory, our mattresses utilize natural materials like cotton cushioning, which dissipates body heat, Joma wool quilts for warm wintry nights and cool summer evenings, and natural latex providing superior conformability and pressure relief for aching joints. Stop in today at any Ken Michaels Furniture store and save up to 50% compared to national brands.
Recently, a seller that unfortunately ended up choosing another agent called me. She said she made a mistake, and what she was expressing to me sounded like she kind of was bullied into signing with him. Is it typical? Not always, but it will never happen when you hire a Century 21 Benefit Realty agent. I want our agents to be able to look in the mirror and say, I'd want to work with me. Not because they're good at saying what you want to hear or offer the lowest commission, but because of trust. Because if you're not feeling that from your agent, that's a problem. And I don't want that. At 1.9% on the listing side of your sale with our commission capped at $19,000, Century 21 Benefit Realty leads with a very fair and transparent commission structure with maximum marketing that can get your home sold fast and for the best price. And saving money matters, but working with someone who will tell you exactly what you need to know up front, that creates trust. And that matters too. This is Angela Calais with Century 21 Benefit Realty, benefit-realty.com, where you pay less for full service. Each office is independently owned and operated.
Welcome back to Bucks Talk.
All right, again, lost in the shuffle of this. I don't want to underscore it. The Bucks win today, taking down the Bulls 131 to 115. Ryan Rollins with a double-double with 21 points and 10 assists. Kyle Kuzma with 31 points and 10 rebounds. And the Bucks with a season-high 23 made three-pointers. It may be polarizing to win games, and especially this performance tonight, because now Bucks are still 3 games back of 2.5 games back in the standings of the Charlotte Hornets, who are currently 11th. The Bulls are still number 10 right now, but the Bucks are only a game back in the loss column of Charlotte and 2 back in the loss column of the Bulls. The Bulls, again, made a lot of moves today that appears like they are more focused on the future than once again playing in that 9-10 matchup in the play-in tournament. So the door is not slammed shut for the Bucks to get into the play-in tournament, and who knows from there. We did see Giannis working out on the court before the game today, and we've heard from the start, Giannis does not want to be shut down for the season. Doc said before the game today that Kevin Porter Jr. is very close to return. Could be as soon as tomorrow. Otherwise, heavily implied, if not Wednesday's game, it's going to be Friday's game against the Indiana Pacers. So they can still get there. Whether or not getting there is what's best for this franchise is an entirely different conversation, but the complicated part of it all is the uncertainty over the future. And if there is that communication to say, look, Giannis, this is what we need. We understand it's a disappointment to you. It's a disappointment to us as well. But at this point, it is in our best interest to get a really good draft pick this summer because we think whoever that is can be an impactful player that can help us immediately. And I keep mentioning Philly, and look at what Philly did where we had slammed the door shut on them. Joel Embiid was never going to be the same guy again. They shut him down last year, continued to slow play him through the start of this season, and now all of a sudden, nobody's going to say he's the best player in the world, and that MVP version of Joel Embiid that we've seen really for a bulk of his career, but Joel Embiid looks, in a sense, back. And Tyrese Maxey's the biggest part of their success, but VJ Edgecombe, who they got with their high lottery pick, has been incredibly impactful. And when you look at impacting winning, I mean, he's up there in the mix with Con Knipple and Cooper Flagg. And if your pitch is, we can get that. We can get that type of thing because this draft is even better, and that's what's going to help us in the long haul. That's what we can pair with you, and that's how we pivot into this next era. There has to be a collective unity and all sides being on board to say, okay, I'm committed to this. If you can show me you're going to do this, if we do these things, if we get that type of pick, if we get this type of player with that pick over the summer, if you make some other moves that help rounding out this roster, because the Bucks are no longer in cap hell, they could potentially, and we'll see what happens in this next day and a half, create even more flexibility. If we see those things, then yes, I'll sign an extension in October, and I will finish and continue and end my career here with the Bucks. But part of that then is saying, look, we're best off to not make the play-in tournament, to not make the postseason, because as it sits right now, the Bucks have, I believe, the 8th worst record in the league. 8th worst. So the Dallas Mavericks, Utah Jazz, Brooklyn Nets, Washington Wizards, Indiana Pacers, tomorrow's opponent, the Pelicans, and the Sacramento Kings, all worse records than the Bucks. So 2 of those teams on the list are your next 2 opponents. You're not going to move up very farther than that. I mean, I do think the Bucks' floor is probably 7th worst pick. You have 19 wins. The Mavs are 19-31. You're 19-29. So you're already 2 losses fewer than Dallas. You're 6 losses fewer than the Utah Jazz. It's going to be tough to get any lower than that. With flattened odds, who knows? You got a chance. I believe the Bucks have a 31% chance with their current record to move into the top 4. But the important part there is you need New Orleans to stay in the top 4, because all you need to know about this pick, the Bucks do have a first-round pick this summer. They just can't have the number 1 pick. That is the only thing we know because of the pick swap. If they win the lottery, that goes to Atlanta. Otherwise, Atlanta gets the better of either the Bucks pick or the New Orleans Pelicans pick, and the Bucks get the other one. So if you can, ideally, jump into the top 4 and you're picking 2nd, and Atlanta wins the lottery and they're picking 1st, that's the ideal scenario. That's the best case scenario, but still, there's a chance you could be a top 4, at least top 6 pick. And the guys in this draft, I mean, everybody's mentioning it's a 3-person draft in terms of these guys are superstars, but there are starters all throughout the lottery and guys that can help you immediately, and that more than anything is what this team needs, especially if they're going to continue to move forward with Giannis and say, we got this, we just need the right pieces around him. That type of pick is the right piece. So tomorrow we'll see if they turn this into consecutive wins. The Bucks and the New Orleans Pelicans, 7 o'clock tip-off from Fiserv Forum. 6:30 is when our pregame coverage begins. And as always, be sure to stick around after the game for Bucks Talk. We went a bit longer tonight, so appreciate everybody for sticking with us throughout late into the evening. I would imagine there's going to be more fireworks and another busy day tomorrow and more of the same as we get you set for the trade deadline Thursday afternoon. So certainly a lot to dig into on our post-game show tomorrow once again. We'll talk with you guys tomorrow night from Fiserv Forum once again on Bucks Talk.
Marty's Pizza in Delafield has expanded its delivery zone. Yep, we're sending our heated oven delivery trucks out farther